This is our reunion report back, reflection on what happened at the House and Indigenous Research Data Commons Summer School in February in Brisbane. I'd like to start by paying my respects to elders past and present and acknowledging that I'm coming from the land of the Kaurna peoples. If you'd like to put where you're coming from today, please feel free to put it underneath. I'm starting off with a poll. Okay, so if you put in your QR code, you remember this from summer school, or go to slido.com and put in this number. I'm just interested to hear who's on the call, whether people were attendees, presenters, or interested. Okay, I can see we've got about 20 people on the call, so I'll just wait a bit to... This is good, really good to know, though, because it sort of lets me sort of work out what extra we need to tell. So it looks like most people are sort of joining because they couldn't make it to summer school and they kind of want to know what's happened, which is really, really nice. So I'm just going to give that another 10 seconds. So can you please make your selection if you haven't? Okay, so thank you very much. That gives us a really good idea of sort of how to slant this. So thank you very much. And hello again to the attendees and presenters. Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to very quickly talk about what the ARDC is, why we have summer school, when, who, what it involved, what we did. But then I'm going to try and get as quickly as possible to the takeaways. So that is, we have a number of guests who have given their time because they were presenters or because they were attendees, just to talk about their main takeaways, what their experience was at summer school, which I'm kind of keen to hear about. And then just a little bit on where to next, whether we want to do some more stuff around summer school sort of throughout the year, what we'd like 2026 event to look like. Okay, so what's the ARDC? The Australian Research Data Commons, we're a research data infrastructure facility. Basically what we do is we get together and do stuff up here that people can't do in their individual projects. So we want to support Australian researchers to competitive advantage through data by accelerating research and innovation, driving excellence in the creation, analysis and retention of high quality data assets. We do that via the data commons model. And our research data commons consists of people, skills, data, related resources like storage, compute, software, and models to enable researchers to conduct world-class data-intensive research. So the idea is like in medieval times when you had a village and they would have a stretch of land in the middle, which was the commons where people farmed together. They produced things together rather than having individual little patches. It's that joint collaborative effort made of a lot of different elements. So within our part of the Australian Research Data Commons, our pillar, we've also got an environmental pillar. We've also got a health and medical pillar. We have House research and Indigenous research data within it. Indigenous research data does cover some of the other stuff in the other pillars like medical and environmental, but historically we are together and stronger for it. We have 6 focus areas. We've got improving Indigenous research capabilities, which was Levi doing the Indigenous data governance stuff at summer school, Language Data Commons of Australia, and we've got Simon from ARDC here today, the Social Science Research Infrastructure Network, and we've got Matthew Curry here talking about the stream he did in R. We've got Connections or Community Data Lab, which is what we've just been, if anybody was about an hour ago in the webinar where we were looking at creating new products and ideas that will work across all humanities. We've got the Australian Internet Observatory, and we've got the Australian Creative Histories and Futures. You can find out more about them on the website. So with this, why summer school for the Hass and Indigenous Research Data Commons? Well, we've got this formal thing, which is through learning activities, enhanced knowledge and connections to stimulate data-enriched research using the infrastructure developed within the ARDC Hass and Indigenous Research Data Commons. What we're doing is we're creating a lot of data sources, data tools, ways of doing things, conversations that actually we want people to be participating in. And one of the key ways to do that is to help people get through those skills barriers, but also to have conversations and to be mentored through that kind of thing. And so that's what summer school is really there for, is to help people get those digital research skills that they need in order to use and be part of this great stuff that we're sort of making together. So this year, this is the third summer school that Hass and Indigenous have run. This year, these lovely people were in Brisbane at the University of Queensland from the 4th to the 6th of February. The day before that, at the State Library of Queensland, we had the Hass and the Indigenous Data Governance Masterclass, where we went really deeply into what it meant to respectfully use data that impacts and is from Indigenous people. So there are people who are looking at some of the Indigenous materials at the State Library. We also had panel sessions around that for the whole day. Okay, so we're not going to talk much more about that, but this event happened on the back of that 3 days of this after Indigenous Data Governance Masterclass. So at summer school, what did we do? The backbone over the 3 days was streams of 4 workshops, and you've got Sam there who's helping people in, I think, stream C, I think. We had 4 different streams that were being run by our partners. We had the first stream was Indigenous data governance. So we looked at fair and care, an introduction to metadata as it related to Indigenous data, creating and applying metadata. People were doing things with Excel spreadsheets, and then contributing to the Indigenous Data Network catalogue. Stream B looked at organising Hass and Indigenous data. So we looked at data management for sustainability. We looked at metadata, what's important about licenses, and using a tool called Crato to make data and its metadata transferable together. And Simon was the person who was mainly there. Stream C, computational techniques for obtaining and analysing data. So this was mainly a Jupyter network notebook stream, looking at using Python, looking at data donation methods and tools for online platforms. So how you actually get social media data for yourself to analyse, computational methods to use some of the computational analysis tools coming out of the Language Data Commons of Australia, and then network visualization of social media data. So in this case, a corpus of items from Reddit that then we looked at how you use your Jupyter notebook to visualize that. Stream D, which Matthew Curry was involved in, was looking at administrative data analysis using R. So it started off just saying what's R Studio, and what is government administrative data, the data that they were particularly working with. They looked at the basics of data manipulation, how you did that, and then looking at regression analysis and interpreting results in R. So that was the workshops, the 4 1-hour workshops. And the feedback is next year we'll be doing 90-minute ones because they were a little bit short and people were wanting a bit more. Okay. We also gave a lot of space for people to be able to talk and share, and the workshops were run so that we actually asked who was there and we said, well, what do you want to learn? We had lots of activities where people were actually interacting with each other and sharing information in ways that we had shareable documents. We had, online, in the site, there were lots of different bits of information up. We had one of the things, I don't know whether my camera will show it. Yes, it does. This little blank postcard. So for the icebreaker, we got people in groups of 4 and we asked them, okay, so with your different research areas, what's a journal article that could be written combining what you do? And put yourselves down, please, as authors. So what that meant was when we put them up around where we were eating, people could go and find those authors and say, I'm interested in that as well. We also had stickers. So they were sitting there. So if people really, really wanted something to be written, they'd put a sticker on it. And that sort of gave us an idea of what the crowd was into without doing a lot of polls or asking for loud voices. We also had 4 hours of, okay, here's the time, here's the classroom, here's some support. What do you want to do? And so this is the yarning circle that happened at the end of the first day and at the end of the second day, because people were so much wanting that. So it was actually following what people wanted. We had one session, which was the HDR students talking about, okay, this is what I'm researching. One about, I've got Indigenous data or sensitive data that needs to go back to community. How do I do that and respect privacy? How are we using AI tools within our workflows? So it was basically following what people might be interested or could contribute. We had Donnie there who was doing a analysis of Indigenous representation in media. So he showed a little film and then we had an hour of that. Okay, so it was that type of stuff as well. So we also happened to luck on the only caterer in Brisbane who remembers people's names. It was commented in the feedback was we had these great caterers and we actually had somebody who remembered people's names, but we made sure that we had lots of space for people to be able to get together over good food and talk to each other and make connections, because it was a lot of it was about connections. You learn better if you think that the person next to you can help you and it's okay to ask questions. So I'm moving on to the takeaways. I've got 2 numeric takeaways that I kind of liked. One is we asked people as they exited, tell us before you actually came to summer school, what was your knowledge about data-enriched research using the HASS and Indigenous Research Data Commons before the event? And saying strong or very strong was 19%. Afterwards, we had 77%. So we kind of did what it said on the tin, which was really nice for us to know. We also asked how many people, whether people were satisfied, and the number of satisfied or very satisfied was 93.5%. And that kind of matched the vibe that I was feeling, as in it was just such a nice time that people were really sharing and learning. So I am now going to hand over to people who were there. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and say who they are, and just to give us a 5-minute takeaway about anything they'd like to about summer school. So I'm starting with Lucia.
Oh, there we go. I was muted. Hi, everyone. My name is Lucia Fraiese, and I am a 4th-year PhD student at the University of Western Australia. So I'm connecting here from unceded Noongar Boodja. So my PhD research, very briefly, looks at the sociolinguistic identities of First Nations girls from all around the state at a boarding school here in Perth. So basically what I did for my research project was to go to the school and board with them for a few weeks at a time every term for like a year and a half in 2022 and 2023. And I recorded them in conversation with each other, talking about a range of topics that were important to them at the time, like their experiences in boarding school, their lives back home, school gossip, and so on. And with this, I collected a linguistic corpus of 42 hours of recorded conversation. So I was very lucky to be generously given a bursary to attend summer school. And I was really looking forward to it because I really wanted to learn more about how to future-proof my data, like what to do with these recordings, but mostly in line with fair and care principles. And I, like as Kit said, I guess this really applied to me because I had really been stressing over how to balance this idea of, participants having the right to privacy and anonymity, which is what I obviously promised them, but also being able to return the data to community and making the data findable and accessible. And I think summer school for me, like one of the main takeaways was that I was able to explore these issues and many more others, but particularly these that I was hoping to address in great depth. So there were some really, I think, thought-provoking discussions happening all the time, not only in the sessions, but, you know, when we were having lunch, or like it just kept happening all the time. I really enjoyed that. And I think, yeah, these discussions really made me think about my practices, but also my aspirations in terms of data governance and sovereignty. So they were really, really valuable. I particularly like these explore and expand sessions that Kid was also referring to, these sessions where we sort of got to choose topics that we wanted to talk about and were given the space to do that. And I think these sessions really sort of spiked these kinds of discussions that I really needed, I think. And the atmosphere is great, not only at these sessions, but, you know, the whole of summer school. It was very welcoming. And I think as a PhD student, I found, like I had before the summer school, found myself like a bit lost in terms of data ethics, to be honest. Like I hadn't really had much in terms of training and discussion. And when I prepared my data management plan back in 2022, it was more of a box ticking exercise, if I'm being honest. And as my candidature progressed and my fieldwork progressed and everything, I don't know, I just began to think a bit more about these issues, and I wanted to learn how to do better. So I think the summer school was great in this respect. That's exactly what I needed. So it was, I guess it was a very good place to open up about my data problems, because I wasn't the only one with these problems. I realized it was great to see so many people being so honest and humble about the things that they were struggling with and looking for, you know, ways of improving their practices and knowledge. And that was really, really reassuring. Honestly, I wish I had known about the summer school before, like when I first started. And I know it's never too late to, you know, learn and to be better and so on. But now I think that it's so important to think about your data ethics and your management from the very start of your project, like when you're even, I don't know, just thinking about the whole conceptualization of your project. So yeah, I definitely would have liked to be able to do this as early on in my project as possible. So if there's other PhD students listening, I really hope this helps you. It's never too late, but I do hope that I recommend that you attend the summer school as early as you can. And even if you think that you don't have any particular concerns or questions about your data ethics and management, for me, like being able to talk about my issues with others, or even just like pick their brains or tell them this is what I'm doing and this is how I'm doing it, just being able to talk about it, I think really improves your practice more generally speaking. So I think this kind of training should really be a must for all researchers, not just PhD students, but importantly, when you're a PhD student, you kind of need this guidance. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you very, very much. I'll leave sort of quick conversation until the end. Robert, is Robert on the call? I didn't see him at the start. Okay, I will go on to Matthew from James Cook University.
Thanks, Kit. As Kit said, my name is Matt Harris. I was a participant at the summer school. My role is data manager with the Australian Research Council's Centre of Excellence for Indigenous and Environmental Histories and Futures. I'm based on Yirrkala country, so just north of Cairns, up in tropical far north Queensland at the JCU Noomabata campus. Our centre is really based on authentic co-design with our 8 Indigenous partner organisations. And our aim is to tell the true history of Australia, through authentic co-design, through combining meaningfully the best of, Western scientific knowledge that we have available to us with our academic researchers, and combining that with the deep and incredible knowledge of country that our Indigenous partners bring to the centre. So it's a really, really exciting opportunity to work in this space, managing data for these various projects and for the centre. And I also have a background in archaeology and GIS, so I'm really lucky to be able to participate in research in those areas as well. My takeaway really from the summer school was that it's just a very, very welcoming and collegial place. It was a really nice, Kit sort of touched on it before, but it was really just a nice 3 days. There was a lot of discussion from all the people there. It was sort of this coalition of the willing. So all this different industries and organizations who were interested in making really important progress in the way that we manage HASS and Indigenous data, especially managing that data ethically, with the due care and responsibility that is required. And for me, the focus on Indigenous data sovereignty and Indigenous cultural and intellectual property was really, really important. The takeaway for me was that, all the participants, the presenters, partners, were all at different stages along the way in that journey, but everyone was really willing to kind of share their knowledge and collaborate. It wasn't one of those events you go to where people are guarded about what they're doing, or there's kind of this competitive, conference-like environment. It was very, very open. Everyone was really willing to have a chat, and talk honestly about the struggles that they were having managing these data sets, because, this isn't an easy task to manage HASS and Indigenous data, but it's a really exciting time to be in this space, because there's so many people working in there. And, for me, it's really exciting because we have our existing collaborations with our Indigenous partner organisations, and we're very fortunate to be working directly with people, with Indigenous people working on the data that is generated on their country.
Is that?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, a little bit brief, I guess, but
no, it's great. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Okay, next for a takeaway is going to be a presenter. I think, yes, Simon. Over to Simon Musgrave.
Thanks, Kit. So obviously my name's Simon Musgrave. I'm the Research Support and Training Lead on the Language Data Commons of Australia project, and I was a presenter at summer school. My own research nowadays, so I've had a long-standing interest in the use of new technologies and computational tools for linguistic research, and my current research interests are mainly to do with language use in Australia using a data-driven approach. That sounds pretty abstract. So the last couple of things I've worked on, I just had an article appear in the Australian Journal of Linguistics, which is about the glossaries of slang that are provided by writers like C.J. Dennis and Barry Humphries. And any day now we're expecting a paper to come out in a major journal, two of my colleagues from the Language Data Commons, where we're looking at the concept of unparliamentary language in the Australian Federal Parliament, which is based on the almost 1 billion tokens of the record of Hansard since Federation. Kit and Matt both mentioned the Explore and Expand sessions, which were part of the summer school, and I'd like to also talk about that because, of course, it would be immodest for me to say that the highlight was my outstanding teaching. So the Explore and Expand sessions, when Kit put them into the program, I was kind of looking at them thinking, I wonder what's going to happen, because this has got to be participant driven. And it's, that's always a little bit of a gamble. You think, is anybody going to want to do anything? What will they want to do? Anyway, for one of the sessions, I wandered over to where Kit and the other organisers were sitting and said, is there a session I should be going to now? And they said, well, actually, we've got a session on ethical issues around data that people have asked for. Would you like to go and facilitate that? And I said, well, sure. And I went over and I wondered, okay, people had asked for it, but how many people would be there? Well, there was a full room, which was a great start. And not just a full room, but a room full of people who were ready to ask questions, to share experiences, to talk openly, as Matt said, about what they were doing. And it was just a great experience to be there and have a respectful and discussion full of goodwill and people seriously grappling with important questions. We easily filled an hour, and this was, at the end of the day when people's energy levels, you might expect them to be flagging, but we kept going right through that hour, and we could have kept going for another hour, I reckon, if we had been able to. And, people followed up those discussions with me individually at times afterwards as well. So I found that a really exciting aspect of the summer school, that it did give people the opportunity to get involved in activities which they wanted, and that was a really, really beneficial exercise for everybody involved.
Sorry, I tried to turn my mic off and I said something else. Thank you very much. So that was in the right smack bang. That was smack bang in the middle of the summer school, and it was the data exchange, and everybody's experience who facilitated. They seemed to have the one. I almost cancelled it in the morning because I thought this is just going to detract from the workshops, and people need more workshop time, and energy is going to be wrong. But for some reason it worked really well, and part of that was, I think, just because we'd got the sessions that were the questions that people wanted. We'd ask people, what do you want to learn? And there were some things we'd missed out on in the workshops, and boy, was there a need for them in those particular sessions, I think. So thank you. Yeah, on to Matthew Curry, who was another one of our stream leaders.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matthew Curry. So I'm at the University of Queensland, and I'm a sociologist who studies inequalities in education, in labor market outcomes, in intergenerational inequalities, stuff like that. And so I'm part of the Social Science Research Infrastructure Network, which is a project that collaborates heavily with the HAS and ARDC. And so as part of that kind of larger project, we do a lot of stuff with administrative data. And so our workshop and 101 sessions were focused on kind of introducing administrative data, how it can be used for research purposes, particularly social science research purposes. And then the workshop was really focused on doing kind of like live coding and introducing R as a tool, as a software tool to analyze those types of data. And so I think for me, kind of takeaways were, one were the kind of contrast between what, for the people that weren't there, what were called 101 sessions, which were these brief overviews of a topic, and then the workshops, which allowed people to go deeper down and actually, get their hands on things, learn in a more detailed way. And so I thought the contrast between those two. So we saw, I didn't personally run the 101 session, but I was there while a colleague of mine gave a 101 session on administrative data. And so seeing kind of people who weren't going to go to our workshop still be really engaged with the topic in general, maybe introducing the topic, and hopefully someone will pick that up and maybe they weren't planning on using any admin data for their projects or for their research, but hopefully we could introduce them to that in the 101 session, and maybe they come back to that later. So seeing the kind of contrast between the broad and the more detailed, I think, was nice. And just the overall level of engagement, I mean, Simon mentioned this as well, but even in the workshops, was just really high throughout, I think, the 3 days. And if we include the Indigenous data masterclass, which I know a lot of people attended before that as well. And so that was really my takeaway. We tried to build our workshop, and I'm sure a lot of other people did as well, to be kind of as collaborative as it could. And we found that can be a double-edged sword sometimes, depending on who you get to show up. But at something like this, which I guess is optional, and students are joining because they want to be a part of it, I think it really worked, and students were helping each other just as much as any of us who were facilitating the workshops. So yeah, I guess that would be kind of my takeaways.
Thanks, Matthew. Actually, something that I've forgotten into just now is that in one of the Explore and Expand sessions I was running, it was the one about privacy and returning data. people were using the term administrative data, and it was just naturally being thrown around, and there's no way that would have happened without that 101. I thought I must tell you guys that, and I didn't get a chance to. So now I'm sort of sharing with everybody, but I was really interested in the way the vocabulary had been picked up and it was being used. So yeah, cool. Okay, and next, Madeline.
Hello, my name is Madeline. Yes, I'm also in Ngabuja, like Lucia. I'm also a linguist, and I'm at the end of my 4th year, actually. In fact, I am quite literally in the middle of writing the last final paragraph of the completed draft of my thesis. So I'm actually quite glad to have a distraction. It's quite welcome. I've actually attended 2 summer schools. I attended the 2024 school as well, and had a bursary to attend that, which was great. That was at Monash in Melbourne. And then to this year's, which was it's just fantastic to be able to have the 2 in sequence and be able to put step after step together in the way that I could. And my takeaway is that I actually can't think of other occasions where there is the same kind of collegiality, the same opportunities to talk to people from other disciplines, get their ideas and inputs. It's so stimulating. Have those conversations, feel like you're on an equal footing with the people who are giving you, the people who are the experts who are giving you the sort of instructions and stuff. Everyone's there kind of as peers. But also to have the kind of really useful guided workshop instructions to use the practical tools like Crato for RO creating, which I'm not going to pretend I actually know how to use it now, but I certainly understand how it's supposed to work, and I kind of feel like I've got the equipment that I'm going to need to get my data wrangled. Now, my data are very curiously kind of I have it's kind of several sorts of objects that kind of manifest the same content. So, for example, because I'm a historical linguist, I'm working with manuscripts, and these things are all over the place in people's, in hard copies, in a shed in someone's back garden, and one's in a big paper bag in the back room of a shop in a southwest town. So the last time I saw it was anyway. So I know roughly where these manuscripts are, but they're not mine, and I don't know. They could disappear at any time. Although my phone number is written on the paper bag of one of them, so I could get a phone call any old day with someone saying, "What do you want me to do with this manuscript?" And that will be an interesting challenge. So there's that, but there's also digital photographs of these manuscripts, that some of which I've taken, but others belong to the consultant who's kind of put me in touch with these people. And her husband, a photographer, has taken these beautiful, clear, crisp photos, which I've been using, of pages of the manuscripts. Who owns those photos? I've got those digital objects, but how do I kind of manage them in a way that they're properly licensed, if you want to look at them? Then there's the transcriptions of these manuscripts, which that's my handiwork. I've actually done the transcriptions to kind of the protocols that are in place in historical linguistics for ink blots and whatever, interlinear marginalia and things like that have all been coded into my transcripts. How do I, safely manage those so that, and also with the kind of the licensing of the people who own the manuscripts and the photos, it's kind of like these piled on layers of ownership and stakeholding that I've kind of had to get my head around. In 2024, I was able to ask Simon about this directly, and he was incredibly helpful, helped me kind of get my head around how I might sort of set up how I might choose a good metadata schema and get all these kind of things wrangled into records, which can then hopefully be hosted by LDACA. But then at this kind of follow-on, a year later, summer school, I was able to actually get the next steps in how I was in the Stream B organizing data, and it was just so helpful and useful to be able to be in that milieu and learn those things. And I'm sure I'll be putting them to use as soon as I've got this thesis out of the way. So yeah, that's kind of that's me, and that's my takeaway. It's an amazing collegial thing. Also, and I will also say that I mentioned in my notes the Explore and Expand sessions, incredible agility of the organizers to be able to pivot and do these things, participant-led decisions about what's going to be in these sessions. It was just magnificent. It was just such a good experience all around. So yes, that's me.
Sorry, new interface. Thank you very much, Madeline. So we've got a bit of time. So I can see there's people on the call. So if people want to put questions in chat about anything to do with summer school, past, present, any of the speakers, please do. But in the meantime, what I'm really interested in is, it's been about 6 weeks now since summer school. Sorry, Leah, I'm sorry. I'm so glad.
I
didn't have
wonder
you
if
in
she's
my
gonna
slides.
notice.
No, I'm so sorry. Here we go. I was just saving it. I was just waiting for people to say,
Thank you so
where's
much.
Leah?
You're building
I'm so
anticipation.
sorry.
I understand.
Leah.
Yes. Yeah. No problem. No problem. I mean, I actually don't have that much more to say, and I was really, I'm heartened to hear everyone else talk, because a lot of you touched on the things that I also noticed and appreciated about the summer school. And I think even just taking time to take a second to appreciate the catering that we had. I seriously, like, the atmosphere created by those two caterers who remembered everyone's name and really took the time to create a space, not just provide food, but like create a space where everyone felt like they could hang around and just chill and eat illicit snacks. Like, they fed us outside of the scheduled times. Like, those people they took it to a next level. But I was a participant in this year's summer school. I was also a participant in last year's summer school. So it was really nice to see how the feedback from last year was taken on board, and the summer school continued to develop. It was good before, it was better this year, and I'm sure it'll be even better next year. And so I'm a researcher and a teacher at the University of Queensland. I research social perceptions of AI and digital storytelling and do all that kind of stuff. But the real reason I attend these summer schools is because I'm a lecturer in digital media, and I am really interested in surveying methods that I can use in my classes. I teach digital analytics, but also that I can use with my honors students and my master's students and my PhD students. And that's what these summer schools are really good for me, is not achieving any kind of expertise in any kind of methods, because I don't necessarily think that this is the place to achieve mastery of any of these methods. But I think these are the places that you can go to figure out what is happening and what options are available to you. And as Matthew Curry said, like, it's not about necessarily saying you're going to use these methods right now, but you might use those methods later down the line. So it's that kind of awareness of what is available to you. And I think my main takeaway was, this is going to sound so, like, I mean, in addition to what everyone else has said, this is going to sound so kind of like meh. But it was actually at the very beginning when we did that postcard exercise. And that's the thing that really stuck with me. So when I think about the summer school, the first thing I think about is that postcard exercise, where we all had to get together and just create these imaginary paper titles with people we'd never met who are from different disciplines. And through that exercise, you very quickly get a feel for how much overlap there is in everyone's work, either in methods or in content or in just interest. So I have a lot of meetings that are continuously booked in with people I met at the summer school from various places. We have collaborative projects in the works, none of which were listed on the postcards, but just being able to do that exercise and to think, like, immediately it set the tone as this is an interdisciplinary space. We are looking for places for collaboration or spots for collaboration. And we're going to do what we can to facilitate those. That's kind of my takeaway. So yeah, there's me. Now, Kit, you can go through your additional questions. You can fill the additional time.
It actually riffs on very nicely from you, but I do apologize to everybody for that.
You're good.
Yeah, look, I'm interested in the ripples. You know, I sort of say, it's 6 weeks since we were all together, and what I'm really interested, I tried to kind of capture it in the feedback question, which was, how many people will you talk to about summer school in the next fortnight? Because I'm really interested in, my idea is that we're planting seeds that will grow in 5 years. It's not going to be an exit survey that's going to tell us stuff. But I'm just interested to know, in the last 6 weeks, whether you've spoken to anybody or there's been interactions or you've used what you've learned from summer school in any way.
I've definitely been talking to people about it. I think it was a really great event. I think there's a lot of benefit. I think people might see the title and think, oh, that doesn't really apply to me. But, in Australia, it's very hard to find data that this doesn't apply to, that these principles don't apply to. We should all be thinking about the ways we can manage data ethically in Australia. So I think, I've definitely been thinking about some of the topics that we discussed at the event and thinking about some of the things that I've learned. And it's definitely been informing my practice here at the centre. And it's sort of given me a lot of good ideas on how to teach these principles to people in the centre as well, because the delivery and the content was just so approachable and sort of streamlined, and it was a really well-run event.
Thank you. Are there other things, or even if you haven't used it yet, that you think you'll be using from summer school?
I'll definitely be following up with the RO crate modeling for getting my data into shape. Yeah.
Cool. And is there anybody on the call? There were a couple of people who were already at summer school who weren't invited to speak. Is there anybody who'd like to type into the chat or indeed come on camera and just tell us about their experience? I'm just having a look at the chat to see. Okay.
While we're waiting for others to,
yes.
oh, sorry, I was like, while we're waiting for others to join,
okay.
I think in addition, so it can be really hard to teach, as someone who teaches analytics and data to humanities students. One of the things that I find most challenging is that humanities students often consider themselves like not numbers people or not data people. And so it's not that you're just trying to teach them content, it's that you're trying to actually distill these deeply felt myths about, I couldn't possibly do numbers, I couldn't possibly do code. So one of the things I find really helpful about these summer schools is in addition to the content, is watching other people teach humanities researchers these kinds of things that can be very scary and can be very different. So I was making notes the entire time of like, every time I went to a session, I was like, how is this session being taught? And what can I learn as a teacher about effective ways to teach this kind of content? Because it's so important and it's so relevant, even to people who don't do like quote unquote numbers research. We can all benefit from this stuff, but how do you teach it in a way that doesn't freak out the humanities people? So I learned a lot about how to teach this kind of content, as well as learning about the content itself.
Thank you. Yeah, I shout out to Adeline Wong, who is our learning designer at the ARDC, who helped me a lot with a lot of the ideas about how those sessions should run. We even were sort of imagining, okay, well, in that postcard activity, they will have come from there and they'll probably be in similar groups. So we're going to have to tell them to go across. And, she sort of said, we really were thinking about the audience, have they just eaten and all those types of things. So, it was, there was quite a lot of science and art to some of the stuff. I'm interested in looking at where to next, unless there's more that people want to talk about about what happened at summer school, share for future participants. Oh, okay. Liz is asking, she wondered whether you'd be interested in a train the trainer session at the next summer school. And I can see Leah saying yes, she would. So yes. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen because I can't remember what's on my slides next. I think it just says where to next. I think I've got another QR code for you though. So my first summer school was sort of 40 working days after I started working for the ARDC. And I thought, look, all these people are coming together. They're getting really, really excited about things. And then they kind of go. And wouldn't it be good if they could talk to each other during the year? In the years since then, kind of my thinking's changed a bit, and I think that it actually works well as a little capsule event, and we may not need to be continuing further. But it's one of the things that I was asking. The last thing I was asking on the exit survey was, okay, would you like to have year-round stuff to do with the summer school? And there were a few responses. So what I've done is I've collated those into a little survey now, and I'm just going to go on to the next slide, I hope. Yeah. Okay. So this is going to a little survey, which is just about continuing on. So I can't show it up on the screen because it's not a Slido. But what I'm really interested in doing, and if people are watching this in recordings, if they're quite welcome to do something. I've probably shut it down in about two weeks. But I'm interested in what people would like to see next at summer school, but also whether people have got things for the 2026 summer school, whether they're interested in topics or things we could do. So I'm going to just let you know about that it's there. I think we've flicked it. Yeah, we flicked it out as a link in chat. So as long as you get that down, you'll be able to do that at your leisure. But I'm just wondering, does anybody here have any particular ideas about what they would like to see do they want people to, do they want us to do webinars? Do they want us to do some kind of catch-up community? I'm just curious from the people here what they think.
I think, any opportunities for further sort of contact with that cohort of people, is really good. There was kind of some voluntary contact sharing, and as Leah said, there's been a lot of networking that's happened since the event for me as well. A lot of new contacts new people that I met there. But look, I mean, the yearly check-in is really good, but any other opportunities would be welcome to discuss, the progress and the things that we sort of talked about at summer school.
Now I can see Liz has got her hand up too.
Yeah, I was going to say that often summer schools and things like ResBaz as well, which is kind of like summer school but broader, exist in a way that introduces people to something that they didn't realise they needed, or they had a sense that they wanted to learn about a certain technology or skill but didn't quite know how to get a way in. So post these big events, I think it's really important for people to go back to their campus communities and start asking around for, where are the people who should be teaching me this stuff already? Like, where can I get access? How can I influence the kind of skills, training that should be available, that the university should be providing, without students and researchers champing at the bit, making a case for the kind of training that they'd like to see. That training won't be provided to you, I think. So I think the ball is really in your court, and it's a good opportunity to bring in some more support for this.
Yeah, I think, I mean, one of the things I'm curious about is, I know that everybody does their own training and they've got their supervisors that tell them the information they need. But what I'm hearing from people who did attend summer school, and not just these people, but everybody, was, we really needed this. And I'm curious about, is it that they try to teach you it, but you're just not ready to hear it, so it goes over? So, or what's going on? I'm curious. Does anyone enlighten me?
Well, in my experience, at least, I didn't feel like I had opportunity to learn about these things if it wasn't just me looking for resources and trying to, teach myself, I guess. And it's a very different experience, especially when you're working with terminology or processes or things that maybe you're not that familiar with to begin with. So I think the summer school was really good in sort of breaking that down for me, to be able to actually understand what I'm reading and how to do it, like on a pragmatic level, not just like the theory, but how do I do this? So yeah, at least in my experience at my university, my discipline, there's room for improvement.
Okay, so seeing what other people are doing to apply and being able to talk to them. Okay, I can see Madeline and Maria. I don't know which of you had your hand up first. I'll go with Madeline, but sorry, Maria, if yours was first.
Okay. So I was going to follow on from what Lucia said. I only found out about the ARDC summer school in 2024 because I happened to see an email pop up saying that there were bursaries, and I was thinking, yeah, data, I need to know what to do with my data. And I had actually not really thought about all of the issues associated with how this stuff gets managed and held. And so that was a real eye-opener for me in 2024. And then I actually came back and told my colleagues, Lucia included, you guys have to go to this course. You have to. And so we were so lucky that four of us were able to come from UWA together. And as a team, we now understand this in our little pocket of the academy. We understand what's going on and why these things are important. But it's kind of like it's had to spread through word of mouth, and I don't know how. I don't know how to break into the kind of the consciousness of all the graduate students and researchers who really should be doing this in the first month of their programs.
Thank you. And Maria?
Yeah, just thinking of your question about like what is the boundary between like us as researchers accessing this kind of well, not only this particular summer school, but like speaking more broadly to what Liz was suggesting, that you go and knock on the door of your university about the resources that you would need. I think that for me, there seems to be very intricate to get to the people who are or manage the research infrastructure at the university. At least that's for me. And I think there is a double barrier when you're coming from the humanities and social sciences, just going back to your point, Leah, that I don't know, it's kind of assumed that if you're doing a graduate program in a faculty of humanities and social sciences, you don't need any digital skills, because if you did, then you would have gotten them earlier in your training. So I really struggled to get that. Like I found there was I couldn't get the support I needed from the university. Like I was trying to learn and Python and using some other software to do network analysis. And I couldn't find who could support me in that journey at the university. And now that Liz suggests to go back, so I kind of knew I had that need, and I asked my supervisors, but they were kind of really like, yeah, you can talk to this person, you can talk to this person. And then I would talk to those people and they would say, yeah, there's nothing we can do because we can't enroll you officially. Like I think there are a lot of administrative barriers to accessing that kind of training if you're coming from the humanities and social sciences. So it was in that kind of lookout for alternatives besides my university that I found the ARDC, and then eventually I found out about the summer school, like in one of the newsletters. But it was, like I wouldn't say that it was something given to me. I thought I needed it since I started my candidature, but knowing those options, I felt it was kind of part of the candidature process, like learning where to find information, learning about other institutions like Intersect, for example, and the type of training they do for like using software and other type of things. So I think that point of like that barrier of
there's visibility and access. So even seeing where you can find it, who else is interested in that in the humanities who might have the same need. So at least a couple of you could say, but there's also access once you've actually found where you might be having good conversations, actually convincing them that you need to be part of that conversation and that you actually need this knowledge. Okay, that's really interesting for us to know as a skills team at ARDC that, that's because we're trying to, in some ways, help gaps be filled. And it's knowing sort of what's causing those gaps is really useful for us.
If I could add something to that, it was actually in the summer school. I was in Stream C, and one of the trainers was part of the research infrastructure support at QUT, and I found out that way that there were people at universities who did that, and that was a job. Like I didn't know, and then I went to my university and I was okay, so I need to find someone who does research infrastructure support at the university. So that very fact of I didn't know whose job was to do this, that was like eye-opening for me in this.
So even being able to okay, know that that type of position exists, know that you've got the need, be able to say, yes, I have the need, I'm a humanities student, I need to have it fulfilled. So there's a lot going on there. So that's really, really useful. I mean, I'm very grateful you found us, but given all the mazes that you've gone through, it's sort of a bit hit and miss. But that's really wonderful to hear that that's some of the challenges is about being able to talk to each other. I mean, because if we did have some kind of community where you could talk to each other, somebody, at least one person saying at QUT we have this, then you being able to go back and actually find stuff. Okay, that's really interesting to know. Okay, there's plenty for us to think about. We've got about another 4 minutes and I'm just going to start closing up. But is there anything that people are really interested in talking about? Simon?
Just following up the discussion here, I'd like to mention that I'm planning to take what was the workshop stream I delivered in summer school and turn that into a module that we can offer at faculties across the country as training for PhD students. I know that PhD students have training requirements, and I know that in humanities faculties, a lot of what they're offered is not that useful. So I hope that we can fill an important gap by doing this.
Simon, I knew about that. I was kind of going to poke you and I thought I better not in case you didn't want to talk about it, but it's wonderful. I mean, it's really great. And it's the type of thing that I think is very, very, very much needed. Okay, let me see what else I've got on my slides. I'm sorry, I'm still sharing slides and you could have been seeing each other's lovely faces better. Okay, International Data Week is coming up. I need to talk about it because the ARDC is a major sponsor. Until the 1st of April, we have got the photograph yourself with a koala and you can win 2 tickets to this event. So if you can find the International Data Week website, go there, take a photo of yourself with a koala and you can tag it as IDW and then you can win tickets to the event. Finally, if people want to subscribe to our newsletter, please do. I just want to thank everybody who worked on the summer school, as well as the people who spoke to here and the people who attended. It made it, it was made of people and it was fine people doing fine things. So thank you very much. And I will just leave it there. Thank you very much.